Let's get right into it. Number 10. Fly Geyser. In the middle of the Nevada desert stands something that looks like it was stolen from an alien planet. And the crazy thing is, this whole natural wonder was a complete accident. Back in 1964, a company was drilling for geothermal power. They messed up and didn't seal their well properly. Instead of fixing it, they just abandoned it. Then something incredible started happening. The minerals in the hot water began building up. Year after year, they created these bizarre, colorful towers. Now it's about 6 feet tall and constantly spits boiling water into the air. The whole structure looks like a psychedelic castle. It's marked with bright reds and greens from the algae growing in the hot water. Hundreds of tiny pools reflect the sky like mirrors. At night, it transforms into something even more surreal. Steam rises from these colorful spires under the stars. It kind of looks like a portal to another dimension. Number 9. Cappadocia's Fairy Chimneys. Imagine walking through a landscape that looks like it's straight out of Star Wars. Giant stone pillars shoot up from the ground like mushrooms. Some are as tall as 10-story buildings. This is in Cappadocia, Turkey. But this was all made by nature. About 30 million years ago, volcanoes covered this whole area in ash and lava. The ash turned into soft rock, and harder rock formed on top. Then wind and rain went to work. The soft rock eroded faster than the hard stuff on top, creating these weird rock towers with flat caps, like stone mushrooms. People looked at these rocks and thought, hey, we could live in these. So they carved entire cities inside them. We're talking homes, churches, and underground cities that could hide thousands of people. Some of these cave houses are still being used today as hotels. The best way to see all this is from a hot air balloon. Every morning, hundreds of balloons float over this alien landscape at sunrise. From up there, it looks like you're floating over another planet. Number 8. The cave that shouldn't exist. Deep in the jungles of Vietnam, there's a cave that's so big it doesn't make sense. It's called Hong Son Dong, and it breaks every rule of what a cave should be. Imagine an underground space so massive you could fit a New York City block inside it, complete with 40-story skyscrapers. That's how big this cave is. But size isn't even the craziest part. This cave has its own weather system. Clouds actually form inside the cave. 2 giant holes in the cave's ceiling let sunlight pour in. This has created actual jungles growing underground. There are entire forests growing inside this cave. The cave also has some of the biggest stalagmites in the world. There are stone spikes taller than a 20-story building here. To get there, you have to trek through dense jungle and cross underground rivers. They only let 1,000 people visit each year, and the tickets are super expensive. Number 7. The Cotton Castle of Turkey. Imagine a place that looks like someone froze a giant waterfall made of clouds. That's Pamukkale in Turkey. Its name literally means cotton castle in Turkish. The whole mountainside is covered in white, terraced pools filled with bright blue water. And this isn't some man-made attraction. It's completely natural, unlike most things in your Instagram feed. Here's how it works. Hot springs underground are full of minerals. When this water flows down the mountain, it leaves behind calcium deposits. Over thousands of years, these deposits built up to create these amazing white terraces, kind of like what happens to your shower head, but prettier. The water stays at a constant temperature of about 95 degrees, which is about 35 in Celsius, and it's full of minerals that people believe can heal all sorts of illnesses. The ancient Romans built an entire city called Hierapolis right on top of it. You can still explore the ruins today while relaxing in these natural pools. UNESCO had to make it a World Heritage Site, because honestly, a mountain that looks like it's made of frozen clouds shouldn't exist, but it does. Number 6. The Giant's Causeway. Imagine walking along the coast of Northern Ireland and stumbling upon what looks like a giant's game of hexagonal Tetris. That's exactly what the Giant's Causeway is. It's about 40,000 stone columns all packed together like a massive honeycomb, and these aren't just rough rocks, they're perfect hexagons. 6-sided columns that fit together so perfectly you'd think someone built them. But this is completely natural. About 60 million years ago, a massive volcanic eruption sent hot lava bursting through the ground. As it cooled down, the lava cracked in this weird, perfect pattern, creating these hexagonal columns that look way too perfect to be natural. Some of these columns tower nearly 40 feet high. They start at the cliff and create this strange staircase that disappears into the ocean. The locals tell a different story. They say a giant named Finn McCool built it as a bridge to Scotland to fight another giant. Number 5. Socotra Island. Imagine finding a place on Earth that looks like it's from another planet. That's Socotra Island, sitting alone in the Arabian Sea. The star of the show here is the dragon blood tree. They look like an umbrella, and when you cut them, they bleed dark red sap. The trees actually bleed red. Then there's the bottle tree. It looks like someone buried a giant turnip upside down and left just the top sticking out. 37% of the plants here don't exist anywhere else on Earth. The landscape is just as bizarre as the plants. White sand beaches sit right next to caves and sand dunes. The island even has its own ancient civilization with their own language. They've been living here for centuries. But this island is under threat, because invasive species are slowly taking over this paradise. Number 4. The Danakil Depression. Let me tell you about a place in Ethiopia that feels like it's from another planet. It's called the Danakil Depression. Imagine the hottest place you've ever been. Now make it hotter. We're talking about temperatures up to 131 degrees Fahrenheit. That's hot enough to cook an egg on the ground, and yourself, if you're not careful. This place sits 100 meters below sea level, where 3 giant pieces of Earth's crust are slowly pulling apart. What's left is a landscape that looks like something from a sci-fi movie. You've got pools of bright yellow and orange water that look like they're glowing. These aren't your typical hot springs. They're full of sulfur and other minerals that create these alien colors. And then there's the volcano. It's called Erta Ale. It's got one of the few permanent lava lakes in the world. Picture standing at the edge of a pit filled with bubbling molten rock. It's like looking into hell itself. The craziest part is that people actually live here. The Afar people have called this place home for thousands of years. They mine salt from the ground in temperatures that would make most people pass out. Number 3. The Gates of Hell. In the middle of nowhere, in the deserts of Turkmenistan, there's a giant hole that's been on fire for over 40 years. Back in the 1970s, some Soviet scientists were drilling for oil, but they messed up, big time, which, let's be honest, is kind of a Soviet tradition. They accidentally drilled into a huge pocket of natural gas. The ground collapsed, creating this massive crater. The crater was spewing toxic gas everywhere, so these scientists had this brilliant idea. Let's set it on fire. It'll burn out in a few weeks. But it never stopped burning. This thing has been shooting flames non-stop ever since. At night, it looks like someone opened a portal to hell in the middle of the desert. The government has tried to put it out multiple times, but the gates of hell just keep on burning. Surprisingly, tourists actually come to see this thing, because apparently, some people's idea of a fun vacation is standing next to a giant burning pit in the middle of nowhere. Number 2. The Wave. In Arizona, there's this place that looks like someone took a giant paintbrush and painted waves in the rock, but it's completely natural. Imagine walking through the desert and suddenly coming across what looks like a frozen ocean wave made of a red, orange, and yellow stone. That's the Wave. This masterpiece was created over millions of years. Wind and water slowly carved out these perfect wave patterns in the sandstone. Different minerals in the rock created those amazing colors. The lines are so symmetrical and smooth, it's hard to believe nature made this without any help. It looks more like digital art than a real place. But here's the catch. They only let 64 people visit per day, and you need to win a lottery to get a permit. If you're lucky enough to win, you still have to hike over 6 miles through unmarked desert to get there. But people say it's worth it. Number 1. Avatar Mountains. In China, there's this place called Zhangjiajie National Forest Park, and it looks like something from another planet. Picture this. Huge stone pillars shooting straight up into the sky. We're talking about rocks taller than the Empire State Building, and there's not just a few of them. There's an entire forest of these giant stone towers. These pillars formed over millions of years. This whole area used to be underwater. Then, as the softer rock eroded away, these massive towers were left behind. These pillars aren't just bare rock. They're covered in trees and plants growing right out of the stone. When the fog rolls in, the tops of these pillars look like they're floating in the clouds. This place looks so unreal that James Cameron used it as inspiration for the floating mountains in Avatar. One of the pillars is even officially named Avatar Hallelujah Mountain now. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.